Hello there and welcome back to the Sleep Science, where you drift into strange, soothing corners of natural history that you probably shouldn't be standing in. Right now, the air is thick with the kind of wet heat that makes your shirt cling and your hair curl in unexpected ways. The sky's still dim, just before the first slice of sun, but the mist curling over the low ferns glows faintly with its own ghostly light. You're here in a prehistoric dawn, and the forest is holding its breath. In about 10 seconds, you're going to see something that looks like it escaped from a medieval painting, wandered into a bad dream, and decided to stay. And here's your reality check. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what's your local time right now? Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push aside a curtain of broad, glossy leaves and hear the wet suction of mud under your feet. Something is moving ahead, slow, deliberate steps that barely make a sound. Then you see it. The claws appear before the rest of the creature, each one curved and gleaming, the size and shape of an upturned dinner plate. They sway as the animal walks, attached to arms that seem far too long for its body. When the head finally emerges from the fog, you almost laugh, not because it's funny, but because it's absurd. The face is small, beaked like a turtle's, and its eyes are set in a way that makes it look faintly annoyed at your presence. This is the Therizinosaurus, one of the oddest herbivores in dinosaur history. It's huge, over 30 feet from snout to tail, but those claws are its real headline act, stretching up to 3 feet long each. Originally, paleontologists thought they belonged to a turtle-like reptile, not a dinosaur, because who in their right mind imagines a plant-eater carrying weapons fit for a fantasy villain? A warm gust carries the smell of damp vegetation and something faintly spicy, crushed scythes maybe. The Therizinosaurus tilts its head and begins using those enormous claws not to shred you, which frankly is nice of it, but to hook branches toward its mouth, stripping them of leaves with surprising delicacy. Historians still argue whether those claws were primarily for defense, for reaching food, or for intimidation displays. Imagine showing off by casually flexing 3-foot keratin blades every time someone challenged you at brunch. You take a careful step backward, but your boot sinks with a sticky squelch, and the noise makes the dinosaur glance your way. Its small beak opens slightly, just enough to reveal that, yes, it does have teeth in there, though not many. Its body is covered in a shaggy coat of primitive feathers, which shimmer with tiny droplets of dew. The feathers clump slightly at the base of its neck, where they darken into a rusty red that almost looks dyed. Somewhere far behind you, something shrieks in the trees, but the Therizinosaurus doesn't react. The strangest part is the posture. It doesn't stand like a predator, low and ready to spring. Instead, it's upright, balanced on stout legs with massive hips, looking more like a prehistoric bouncer than a killer. And yet, deep down, you know that if it decided you were a threat, you'd be out of options before you could even say, "Please don't." A quick rustle in the undergrowth to your right catches your attention. A small lizard-like creature scurries across the mud, pausing only to flick a blue tongue in your direction before vanishing. You're so distracted that you almost don't notice the Therizinosaurus moving closer, its claws now glinting in a shaft of early sunlight that cuts through the fog. Here's the quirky bit. Fossil evidence suggests the Therizinosaurus' hands were so inflexible they couldn't actually grip prey. These claws may have been more like pruning hooks than scythes. And yet, some researchers have pointed out that the sheer intimidation factor would have been useful against predators like Tarbosaurus. Standoff weaponry, nature's original social distancing. Your breath fogs the air as the creature stops barely 10 feet from you. Its eyes, deep, dark, and unreadable, blink slowly. Then, with a grunt so low you feel it in your chest, it turns away, stepping back into the mist. Each claw sweeps the air as if drawing invisible lines, and in a few seconds it's gone. The ferns sway where it passed, and the air feels lighter, though you're not sure whether it's because the encounter is over or because you're still here to notice it. In the sudden stillness, you hear a slow drip from somewhere high in the canopy. The sound feels almost too loud now, a reminder that the forest has returned to its own rhythm. You realize your heartbeat is keeping time with the drops slowing, settling, and for the first time this morning, you let out a long breath. You think about those claws, how they were both terrifying and strangely graceful, and you wonder how many other shapes nature has tried on over the millennia just to see what might work. The river greets you before you see it, soft, steady murmuring, punctuated by the occasional slap of something breaking the surface. You step toward the sound, your boots sinking into loamy earth until the trees thin and the mist opens into a broad, glassy ribbon of water. The surface looks calm enough, but every so often a ripple distorts it, hinting at movement beneath. There's a smell here, too, clean, mineral-rich, tinged with the green sharpness of algae. Then the reeds shift on the far bank, and at first you think you're looking at a strange goose on stilts. It has a long, flat beak and an almost comically gentle slope to its head. But when the rest of the body emerges, you realize this is no waterfowl. It's a hadrosaur, one of the so-called duck-billed dinosaurs, and it's not alone. Half a dozen more step into view, their beaks dipping toward the water with casual precision. You watch as one lowers its head, takes in a mouthful of aquatic plants and begins to chew. And chew, and chew. That's when you notice. This creature has a smile full of teeth. In fact, it has more than you can easily count, arranged in dense batteries that would make a dental hygienist cry. Some hadrosaurs had over 1,000 teeth at any given time, constantly replaced throughout their lives. It's less duck with dentures and more lawnmower with legs. The leader of the group, slightly larger and patterned with darker stripping along its back, glances up. Its eyes are alert but not alarmed, and it keeps working through its mouthful of pond weed like you're just another background detail in the morning routine. Historians still argue whether all hadrosaurs were primarily aquatic grazers or if they spent more time on land, but right now, these ones seem perfectly at home wadding belly deep in the shallows. Something stirs under the water, and one of the hadrosaurs sidesteps neatly, as if dodging an over-enthusiastic catfish. They're not built for speed in water, but their long tails act like rudders, giving them enough maneuverability to avoid a sudden splash from whatever lurks below. The splash subsides, and the group shuffles forward again, tails swishing lazily behind them. You crouch at the river's edge to get a closer look. The beak from this angle is covered in a keratin sheath that curves ever so slightly at the tip, perfect for cropping plants. Inside, the teeth are packed into flat grinding surfaces, worn smooth from constant use. Quirky tidbit, unlike many modern grazers, hadrosaurs could chew in a figure-eight motion, sliding their upper jaws slightly outward with each bite. Imagine your jaw doing the cha-cha every time you had a salad. A light breeze drifts downriver, carrying with it a faint chattering sound, not from the hadrosaurs but from somewhere in the distance. Maybe smaller dinosaurs in the trees, calling to each other as the day wakes up. The hadrosaurs remain unbothered, their focus firmly on breakfast. You notice the water darkens in places, shadows twisting just below the surface. Your brain immediately suggests predator, but the herd's calmness is contagious, and you stay put. Then one young hadrosaur, shorter, with mottled skin that looks like someone splattered it with moss-green paint, wanders closer to your side of the river. It dips its beak into the water, lifts its head, and lets a stream of muddy plant bits dribble from its mouth. For a moment, its gaze locks on yours, and you could swear it's sizing you up. Then, without ceremony, it sneezes, a wet, unapologetic explosion that sends droplets spattering your boots, nature's version of good morning. You can almost imagine how these animals might have shaped their environment. Constant grazing would have kept aquatic plants in check, and their droppings would have fertilized the banks. Their thousand-tooth chewing might have been the prehistoric equivalent of a lawn service, trimming the greenery and keeping waterways open. That constant replacement of teeth, it's like having an endless supply of spare parts for your favorite kitchen gadget, efficient, if a little unsettling. A sudden, deep honking sound rolls over the water. It's not from this group, but from farther upriver. Heads lift in unison, ears, if they had them, would be swiveling. The leader shifts position, body angled toward the sound. There's a long pause, and then the group relaxes again, returning to their forage. Communication like that may have traveled for miles. Some paleontologists think hadrosaurs could produce resonant, almost musical calls using hollow crests in their skulls. These here don't have those dramatic crests, but their vocal range is still impressive. Think large duck with a tuba problem. The sun's edge finally breaks the tree line, gilding the water and making the hadrosaurs' skin gleam in mottled shades of brown, gold, and gray. It's a strangely peaceful scene for an era often painted as tooth-and-claw chaos. You realize that even in the age of dinosaurs, most of life wasn't about epic battles. It was about eating breakfast in relative peace, preferably without too many interruptions. One last ripple crosses the river before you turn away. This time, it's broad and deliberate, and the shadow beneath it is much too large to be a fish. The hadrosaurs notice, but instead of panicking, they slowly shuffle toward the shallower bank, tails stiffening slightly. Their calm is somehow more unnerving than a stampede, like they've seen this before and know exactly what's coming. You decide you'd rather not wait to find out. The forest calls again, and you step back into its green embrace, leaving the murmuring river and its thousand-toothed residents to their endless chewing. The forest floor firms up under your feet as you leave the soggy riverside behind, trading the smell of algae for the warm, resinous scent of pine-like conifers. Sunlight filters down in thin, angled beams, dust motes drifting through them like tiny golden insects. Somewhere ahead, you hear the dry shuffle of feet over leaf litter, a quick, light rhythm, like someone trying to sneak across a creaky floor. You freeze just in time to see a blur of tan and black streak across the path. It's fast, but you catch the flash of a long, narrow head, big dark eyes, and a beak edged with tiny teeth. The creature skids to a stop a few meters ahead, swiveling its head toward you with the precise movement of a bird. Its body is sleek, legs long and built for speed, with feathers shimmering faintly where the sunlight catches them. This is Ornithomimus, the ostrich mimic, and you instantly understand the nickname. If an ostrich and a velociraptor had an awkward blind date, this might be the result, minus the awkward conversation. It stands nearly as tall as you at the hip, though it's clearly built for running rather than fighting. Historians still argue whether Ornithomimus was primarily a plant eater, an insectivore, or an opportunistic omnivore. Whatever the truth, the long arms ending in three-fingered hands suggest it could handle a surprising variety of snacks. It takes a cautious step toward you, neck stretched high. Its eyes have that piercing, unblinking quality birds still used today to make you feel like you're being assessed for some unknown purpose. Then, just as quickly, it shifts its weight, bends low, and begins scratching at the ground with its feet. The motion kicks up a fine spray of soil and decaying leaves, revealing a cluster of shiny beetles, which it snaps up with rapid precision. Dinner and a show. A gust of wind stirs the canopy overhead, and a thin layer of needles drifts down like green snow. The Ornithomimus pauses mid-hunt, feathers ruffling slightly, and turns one eye toward the deeper forest. You can't see what it's noticed, but its stillness is contagious. You hold your breath without meaning to. After a moment, it relaxes and goes back to its beetles. Quirky tidbit. Fossilized impressions show that Ornithomimus had feathers on much of its body, including long wing-like plumes on its forearms, even though it couldn't fly. Those feathers may have been for display, insulation, or brooding eggs, basically the dinosaur equivalent of a flashy jacket you can't actually use in the rain. It finishes its snack and glances back at you. Then, without warning, it pivots on one leg and takes off down the path. You hear the drumroll of its feet against the hard-packed earth, the rhythm so fast, and even that it almost blends into a single hum. Ornithomimus could probably outrun most predators of its time, with speeds estimated up to 40-50 miles per hour, fast enough to leave even the most determined pursuer eating dust. You follow its direction at a slower pace, partly curious, partly because the forest seems to be funneling you that way. The ground slopes gently upward, and shafts of sunlight grow stronger as you climb. Then you spot movement again, not your speedy friend this time, but a pair of smaller ornithomimus juveniles. They're picking through the ferns at the base of a slope, occasionally peeping softly to each other. Their beaks probe the plants with quick, stabbing motions, as if sampling each leaf for quality before moving on. From a distance, you can see the faint stripping on their downy feathers, a camouflage pattern that makes them blend almost perfectly into the dappled light. Historians still debate whether these dinosaurs cared for their young like modern birds, or if the juveniles were on their own early. But watching the careful way the two stick close together, you get the feeling they at least understood safety in numbers. A low, distant thump rolls through the forest floor, a sound you feel in your knees as much as you hear in your ears. The juveniles freeze. Then, in perfect unison, they dart for the nearest cover, vanishing into the brush so completely it's as if they never existed. Somewhere above you on the slope, a shadow moves, broad and heavy. You take the hint and ease backward, careful not to snap a twig. If something big is coming down this path, you'd rather not be in its way. A sudden flicker of movement to your left draws your attention just long enough to see the adult ornithomimus again. It's watching you from behind a tree trunk, only one side of its face visible. For a moment, you swear it's trying to decide whether to warn you or just let you figure things out yourself. Then it tilts its head, gives a short, sharp chirp and bolts uphill, vanishing into the brighter canopy above. Whatever's behind you, it doesn't want to be here for it, and you're starting to think that's excellent advice. You reach the crest of the slope, lungs drawing in the resin-heavy air, when the forest ahead opens into a patch of low, thorny shrubs. The ground here is dry, cracked in places where the sun has baked it harder than clay. For a moment, you hear nothing but the steady buzz of prehistoric cicadas. Then from behind a tangle of scrub comes a sound, half hiss, half growl, pitched low enough that it brushes the bottom of your ribcage. It steps into view with a slowness that suggests it has no fear of anything in this clearing. The first thing you notice is the feathers, not the soft, fuzzy coat of a chick, but thick, coarse plumage the color of scorched earth, streaked with pale ash gray along the tail. Its head is narrow, its snout curved in a way that's part raptor, part bird of prey. The eyes are sharp, framed by a bony ridge that makes them look perpetually narrowed in suspicion. This is Anzu Wiley-eye, a predator about the size of a human but far more confident about it. Nicknamed the chicken from hell by the team that described it, Anzu is an overachievers, a group known for their beaks, long arms, and apparently a knack for unnerving stares. Its long legs and splayed claws say it could run if it wanted to, but right now, it's in no hurry. The beak is the most unsettling part, wide, toothless, and sharp enough to slice into tough vegetation or snap through small bones. Historians still argue whether Anzu was primarily carnivorous, herbivorous, or an opportunistic omnivore. Standing here, you're leaning toward whatever it feels like today. The thick, muscled neck shifts slightly as it angles its head to look at you from the other side, and you swear the stare gets more intense. It takes a few slow steps forward, the feathered tail swaying in perfect counterbalance. There's something theatrical about the way it moves, like it's testing how far it can push into your space before you back away. Quirky tidbit: fossils show Anzu had a tall, paper-thin crest on its head, likely for display. This one's is a dull red, the color deepening near the top, and in the sunlight it almost glows, an oddly flashy feature for such a serious-looking animal. A light breeze stirs the shrubs, and you catch a faint, musky odor, earthy and warm, with a trace of something sharper, almost metallic. The Anzu flicks its head toward a movement in the undergrowth and freezes. You follow its gaze just in time to see a small mammal dart from cover, making for a fallen log. The dinosaur is on it in 3 strides, claws hooking the log and flipping it with a grunt. The mammal vanishes into another hole, but the speed and precision of the attack leave no doubt. This thing could catch you if it wanted to. It doesn't pursue the escapee. Instead, it stands there for a moment, feathers slightly puffed, beak half open. Then, as if deciding the show over, it drops back to a calmer stance and begins to peck at the ground near a clump of scythes. The beak clips through the plant stems easily, and in minutes it's foraging like a barnyard bird, pulling up whatever it finds edible. That's the unsettling part. It's equally efficient at hunting and grazing. You take a cautious step sideways, testing whether it notices. It does. Its head tilts again, one bright eye locking on yours, and it emits a short, raspy call, less a threat than a warning. I see you. Don't do anything stupid. You decide not to test the boundaries any further. In the back of your mind, you recall the paleontologist's amusement at finding Anzu fossils in what was once a lush floodplain, an odd place for a predator with such a mixed diet. Some researchers think it may have specialized in wetlands, scavenging and foraging along riverbanks. Others suggest it was more territorial, using its speed and claws to defend nesting areas. Whatever the truth, its skeleton tells the story of an animal that could turn from curious observer to lightning strike in the blink of an eye. You step back into the partial shade of a low tree, letting the filtered light break up your outline. The Anzu seems to lose interest, turning away to pick through another patch of shrubs. From here, you notice the faint iridescence in its feathers, greens and bronzes shifting when it moves, subtle but unmistakable. It's the kind of detail you only see if you were far too close, which you now realize you are. Another sound cuts through the clearing, a distant, trumpeting call, deep and resonant. The Anzu lifts its head, listening, then shakes out its feathers in a ripple from neck to tail. Without so much as a backward glance, it trots off toward the noise, disappearing into the brush with the ease of something that's done this 1,000 times. You let out a slow breath you didn't know you were holding, the cicadas' buzz rushing back into your ears. For a moment, you're left with the faint imprint of that unblinking gaze, and you can't help thinking that if the chicken from hell ever decided to size you up for real, you'd probably never hear it coming. The clearing gives way to a narrow path between stands of towering scythes, their fronds arching overhead like a cathedral ceiling of green. The air here is warmer, heavier, and the ground underfoot crunches with dry leaf litter. You can hear something moving ahead, a steady, deliberate weight pressing into the earth with each step. The first clue is the shadow that slides across the sunlit path, broad, low, and unmistakably armored. Then it appears, a squat, tank-like figure with a back covered in interlocking plates of bone. It moves slowly but with a kind of unstoppable certainty, the way a boulder might roll downhill if it had legs. This is Ankylosaurus, the prehistoric equivalent of a living battering ram, and the only thing on its mind right now is probably lunch. It's massive, over 20 feet long and easily several tons in weight. But what draws your eye is the tail. The end isn't just thick, it swells into a heavy, club-shaped mass of fused bone, swinging gently as it walks. One good strike from that thing could snap a predator's legs or your ribcage like kindling. Historians still argue whether Ankylosaurus used its tail more for defense or for intraspecies battles, but either way, it's a weapon you don't want pointed at you. The head is low to the ground, covered in small, bony nodules that give it the look of a medieval helmet. The eyes are small, dark, and wary, scanning the ground as it shuffles toward a patch of ferns. Its beak, sharp and curved, snips through the foliage with the efficiency of garden shears. The sound of chewing is oddly crisp, like tearing into fresh celery. You step carefully to the side of the path, letting it pass. Quirky tidbit. Some paleontologists think Ankylosaurus's armor wasn't just for defense but might have also served as thermal regulation, with blood vessels running through the plates to help shed heat. In this sun, it's easy to imagine the animal soaking up warmth in the morning and cooling off in the shade later. A sudden rustle in the scythes makes the Ankylosaurus stop mid-chew. Its head swings toward the sound, tail rising slightly, and for the first time you get a sense of how fast it could turn if it needed to. Something small, probably a lizard, skitters away through the leaves, and the tail slowly lowers again. The animal resumes eating as though nothing happened. The ground shakes faintly beneath you just once, like a distant drumbeat. The Ankylosaurus pauses again, this time lifting its head higher, nostrils flaring. You feel it too, that subtle vibration that seems to travel up through your legs. Somewhere in the distance, something large is moving. Predators were never far from plant eaters in this world, and an armored body was a good insurance policy. It moves on, heading toward a sunlit clearing. You follow at a respectful distance, watching as it stops beside a fallen log. With surprising delicacy for such a heavy creature, it wedges its beak into the rotting wood and pries it open, revealing a scatter of small insects. It hoovers them up without hesitation, apparently not above a little protein supplement in its otherwise leafy diet. From this angle, you notice the ridges along its back plates, each one subtly different, like the scales of a dragon forged by an eccentric blacksmith. The skin between them is tough, pebbled, and covered in dust from its constant foraging. A pair of birds, small, bright, and quick, dart down to snatch up insects fleeing from the log, keeping just far enough from the Ankylosaurus's swinging head. The tail club sways as it moves off again, heavy enough that you can almost hear the air shift with each swing. You picture it connecting with the leg of a hungry tyrannosaur, a single bone-crunching hit ending the fight before it began. Theories suggest the tail's swing speed and force could rival a modern baseball bat in motion, only with the weight of a bowling ball at the end. Not something you'd want in a friendly game of catch. As it disappears into the greenery, the sounds of the forest rush back in, the buzz of insects, the distant call of something large and hollow-voiced, the soft crackle of leaves under unseen feet. You're left with the image of that armored back moving away, a walking fortress fading into the shade. You take a step forward, then pause, realizing the vibrations in the ground are still there. They're faint, but closer now. Whatever's coming, the Ankylosaurus didn't seem worried about it. You wish you could say the same. You follow the faint tremor underfoot until the forest begins to thin, the scythes giving way to an open slope washed in golden light. The air here is clearer, carrying the sharp scent of sun-warmed plants and the faint, almost metallic tang of distant water. Then you hear it, a deep, resonant woo-woo that rolls over the hillside like the sound of a ship's horn, startling a flock of small pterosaurs into the air. The source steps into view at the crest of the slope. At first, it's the silhouette that grabs you, long body, sturdy legs, a head held high above the grass. But then you notice the crest, an enormous backward-sweeping arc rising from the back of the skull, hollow like a giant curved trumpet. This is Parasaurolophus, one of the most striking hadrosaurs to have ever grazed the Cretaceous, and possibly the best brass section player the Mesozoic ever knew. Its skin is a mosaic of browns and tans, patterned in irregular stripes that break up its outline in the sun. The eyes are large and calm, scanning the slope as it slowly lowers its head to graze. Each bite is followed by that trademark hadrosaur chewing motion, the jaw gliding forward and back in a slow, figure-eight rhythm. Historians still argue whether Parasaurolophus lived mostly in herds or in smaller family groups, but the fact that you can hear others calling in the distance suggests this one's not alone. The crest catches your eye again, over 5 feet long, with a graceful curve that would put a modern antelope to shame. Quirky tidbit: inside that crest is a complex network of hollow tubes connected to the nasal passages, essentially turning the dinosaur's head into a built-in wind instrument. The low, haunting call you heard earlier likely carried for miles, perhaps to warn, to attract mates, or simply to keep the group in contact. Imagine announcing your location every few minutes with the subtlety of a foghorn. You watch as the Parasaurolophus lifts its head, nostrils flaring slightly, and emits another call. The sound is so deep it vibrates in your chest, a note that seems to hang in the air long after it stops. Somewhere to your left, another call answers, slightly higher pitched, probably from a smaller or younger individual. It begins to move toward the sound, tail swinging in slow counterbalance, the muscles beneath its skin shifting like ropes under canvas. The slope dips gently into a shallow valley, where the grass is greener and dotted with small flowers that sway in the breeze. As it grazes here, you catch sight of another one, a smaller Parasaurolophus with a shorter, less curved crest. It might be a juvenile or perhaps a female, depending on which paleontologist's theory you believe. The two greet each other with soft, breathy huffs before resuming their meal. You crouch behind a stand of low shrubs, close enough now to hear the delicate rip of grass as they feed. The larger one occasionally raises its head, scanning the horizon before lowering it again. Despite their size, these animals could reach over 30 feet long. They have a gentleness about them, a patience in their movements. But the way they occasionally glance toward the distant tree line suggests they're always aware of what could be lurking there. A sudden gust of wind carries a new scent, sharp, musky, and unmistakably carnivorous. The Parasaurolophus freezes mid-bite, crest tilted toward the trees. It exhales sharply, a short, loud burst that makes the smaller one lift its head at once. They stand perfectly still for several seconds. Then the larger one issues another deep call, louder this time, and they begin to move, not running but walking with purpose toward the far side of the valley. You stay low, scanning the trees for movement. Whatever out there stays hidden, but the hair on the back of your neck tells you the Parasaurolophus are right to be cautious. The pair disappears into a dip in the land, their crests still visible for a moment before they vanish from sight. The valley grows quiet again except for the wind. You're left with the fatting memory of that deep, resonant call, a sound that would have traveled through forests, across rivers, maybe even over miles of open floodplain. A sound that said, "I'm here, we're here, and we're listening for you too." The slope drops away into a low, marshy basin, where the air is thick with the smell of mud, stagnant water, and something faintly fishy. You step carefully along a ridge of firmer ground, the reeds brushing against your arms until you hear it, the soft plop of something slipping beneath the surface. At first, you expect to see a crocodile. Then the water parts and what rises in front of you makes your brain stutter. A long, narrow snout lined with conical teeth breaks the surface first, then a pair of small, forward-set eyes. But it's the massive sail rising from its back that steals your breath, a wall of tall, blade-like spines, each connected by stretched skin, towering above the creature like the mast of some nightmarish boat. This is Spinosaurus, and in the hazy light, it looks less like a dinosaur and more like the villain in a story sailors tell to keep you off the water. It's enormous, longer than a bus, with limbs built for both land and water. The sail sways slightly as it moves, rippling with the play of sunlight and shadow. Historians still argue whether the sail was for temperature control, display, or hydrodynamics, but here it feels like an unmistakable declaration. I am here, and you should not be. The Spinosaurus paddles forward with slow, deliberate strokes of its hind legs, the long tail sweeping side to side. Quirky tidbit. Some researchers believe that tail acted more like a giant fin than a counterbalance, making Spinosaurus one of the few dinosaurs fully adapted for swimming. Watching it now, you'd believe it. Its body barely ripples the surface as it glides toward a cluster of fish breaking the water ahead. Without warning, it lunges forward, jaws snapping shut with a wet crack. Water explodes outward, and for a moment, all you see is the gleam of teeth and the curve of its neck as it swallows its prey whole. Then it settles back into that silent, menacing glide, the water closing over its wake like nothing ever happened. You duck lower behind a stand of reeds, though at this distance, it probably wouldn't care about you, unless you got too close. The sail rises and falls as the animal shifts direction, sending small ripples fanning out toward you. A pair of smaller fish leap from the water, scattering like silver coins in the air. It moves closer to the shore, the water deepening in color beneath its shadow. For a moment, it hauls its front half onto the muddy bank, revealing powerful forelimbs tipped with long, curved claws. Those claws hook into the mud as it pulls itself forward, then it stops, head swinging slowly back and forth. You realize its nostrils are placed far back on its snout, perfect for breathing while most of the head stays underwater. Nature's original snorkel. The breeze carries the smell of wet scales and old fish. You shift your weight and the faint splash of your boot draws its attention. The Spinosaurus freezes, eyes locking on your position. For several long seconds, nothing happens. Then, with a slow, almost disdainful motion, it eases back into the water, disappearing beneath the surface entirely. You scan the rippling expanse, heart hammering. Somewhere out there, the largest carnivorous dinosaur known is swimming silently toward, well, hopefully not you. A line of bubbles breaks the surface to your right, moving parallel to the shore. Then just as suddenly, they stop. Minutes pass. The reeds whisper in the wind, insects buzz at your ears, and you start to wonder if it's gone. Then from farther out, you hear the splash of something massive surfacing again. The sail rises one last time, silhouetted against the pale sky, before sliding away into the deeper channels of the swamp. You let out a breath, realizing your hands are clenched tight. The air feels lighter now, but the image of that sail cutting through the water stays burned into your mind, like a warning flag from a time when rivers had their own apex predators, and every ripple might be the last thing you ever saw. The marsh gives way to higher, drier ground, the reeds replaced by stands of tall ginkgo trees whose fan-shaped leaves flutter in the light breeze. The air smells greener here, fresh sap and crushed leaves, and somewhere above, a bird-like trill dances through the branches. You pause, scanning the dappled canopy, until a flicker of color catches your eye. It moves like a dart, quick, precise, hopping from branch to branch until it lands on a low limb barely 10 feet away. At first, you think the light is playing tricks on you. Its feathers shimmer, not in the dull browns and tans you've come to expect here, but in brilliant greens, blues, and purples that shift with every angle, like an oil slick given wings. This is Juji, a small predator whose name means rainbow with a big crest, and the translation could not be more literal. Barely 2 feet long, it stands poised, head tilted, watching you with bright, bead-like eyes. Historians still argue whether its colors were for attracting mates, for species recognition, or as some bizarre form of camouflage. Quirky tidbit: the structure of its feathers contains microscopic layers that scatter light, much like modern hummingbirds, creating that iridescent glow. It flits down to the forest floor, landing with barely a sound. The long, narrow snout snaps toward the ground, snatching up a small insect before you can even register the movement. Its legs are lean and built for quick bursts of speed, and its long tail, tipped with a fan of feathers, sways for balance as it prowls through the undergrowth. You shift your weight to get a better look, and its head snaps up instantly. It freezes, one clawed foot raised, as if deciding whether you're worth the trouble of investigating or avoiding entirely. After a long pause, it takes 3 slow steps toward you, the iridescence along its neck shifting from blue to violet in the filtered light. It opens its mouth just slightly, revealing small, sharp teeth, perfect for snagging prey like lizards, insects, and maybe the occasional small mammal. Then just as quickly, it shuts it again and flits up into a low shrub, the feathers along its chest puffing slightly. From here, it lets out a series of soft chirps that sound almost like songbird calls, though each note ends with a faint rasp. Another movement in the canopy above draws your attention. A second Juji appears, slightly smaller, feathers glowing more in the gold-green range. The first turns its head toward the newcomer, and for a moment the two stand still, watching each other. Then, in a flash, they both leap into the branches, chasing each other in a spiraling burst of motion. You track them through the trees as they weave between leaves, their tails streaming behind them like bright ribbons. Occasionally, one dives low, landing just long enough to snatch up another insect before leaping skyward again. The chase is playful but precise, every leap calculated, every branch chosen with the confidence of an animal that's done this 1,000 times. From the safety of a thicker branch, the larger one pauses, crest feathers raised slightly, and lets out a single, sharp call. The smaller one responds with a quick flick of its tail before vanishing higher into the canopy. The first follows a moment later, its colors disappearing into the shifting greens above until you can't tell where bird ends and leaves begin. You stand in the quiet that follows, the only sound the rustle of ginkgo leaves overhead. It's strange. This little predator would have been insignificant next to the giants you've seen today, yet its flash of color and quicksilver movements feel just as memorable. Somewhere deeper in the forest, a distant call rings out, low, resonant, and unmistakably from something much larger. You take one last look at the empty branch where the rainbow hunter stood, then turn toward the sound, knowing that in this place, beauty and danger are often separated by only a few steps. The path narrows as the ginkgo grove thins, replaced by low, scrubby plants and scattered boulders. Your boots crunch over gravel, each step sending small stones tumbling into the cracks between rocks. The air feels heavier here, warmer, the sun pressing against your shoulders like a hand. Somewhere ahead, you hear a hollow thunk, a single, resonant note that sounds like wood striking wood. Then it comes again, louder this time. You crest a small rise and there it is. A dinosaur standing broadside on the slope, its head lowered slightly, its neck muscles tensed. The skull is thick and domed, the bones swelling upward into a smooth, rounded shape that looks almost polished. This is Pachycephalosaurus, the thick-headed lizard, and in the shimmering heat, it looks like it's wearing a prehistoric motorcycle helmet. Its body is stocky, balanced on sturdy legs, with a long, stiff tail stretched behind it for counterweight. The skin along its back is mottled in earthy browns and tans, broken up by faint stripping. But your eyes keep coming back to that dome, over 10 inches of solid bone, ringed with small bony knobs and spikes. Historians still argue whether these domes were used for actual head-butting combat or for display and species recognition. Standing here, watching it prepare for another strike, you're leaning toward both. The hollow thunk happens again, and you realize there's another one, slightly smaller, standing opposite the first. They're about 20 feet apart, each lowering their heads in slow synchrony, like ritual dancers rehearsing the same move. Then, in perfect unison, they charge. The impact is startling, not a sharp crack, but a deep, resonant boom that echoes across the rocks. Dust rises where their feet slam into the ground, and for a moment, neither moves. Then they step back, shake their heads, and apparently deciding round one wasn't enough, do it again. Quirky tidbit. Some scientists think these head-butting contests weren't about knocking each other out, but about endurance, seeing who could take more blows without giving up. Nature's original and possibly least safe, starring contest. You shift slightly for a better view and one of them catches the movement. Its head swivels toward you, dome gleaming in the sunlight. For several long seconds it stares, tail twitching. Then, as if deciding you're not worth the effort, it turns back to its rival. The two circle each other, kicking up dust, before clashing again with another bone-deep boom. You watch their neck muscles bunch and release with each strike. The force involved is immense, enough that modern engineers have studied Pachycephalosaur skulls for clues about impact absorption. It's like seeing a living wrecking ball with legs. And yet, they seem unharmed, save for a few scuffs along the dome's surface. Eventually, the smaller one lowers its head, not for another charge, but in a slow bow. The larger tilts its dome slightly, almost a nod, before turning and lumbering off toward a patch of low vegetation. The loser lingers a moment, breathing hard, then wanders in the opposite direction, apparently content to find lunch instead of glory. You stay still until both are far enough away that the dust begins to settle. The echoes of their collision still hum faintly in your chest, and you find yourself wondering what it would feel like to stand right between them when they charged. Probably brief. Somewhere beyond the slope, a sharp, almost bird-like call rings out, pulling your attention back toward the deeper forest. You take one last glance at the empty stretch of rock where the Pachycephalosaurs faced off, their marks still etched in the dust. The scene feels strangely ceremonial, as if you stumbled into the aftermath of a sporting event no one was meant to watch. The rocky slope drops into a lush floodplain, where a winding river flashes in the distance like a strip of silver. You make your way downhill, the air growing cooler and wetter with each step. Somewhere ahead, a rhythmic splashing drifts through the trees, too precise to be the wind, too heavy to be a small animal. When you reach the bank, you see it, a long, low figure packing the edge of the water, claws glinting in the sunlight. Its skull is narrow, crocodile-like, with a jaw full of conical teeth perfect for gripping slippery prey. The animal pauses, eyes locked on the rippling surface, then plunges one of its massive claws into the shallows with startling speed. This is Baryonyx, the heavy-clawed dinosaur, and the name is no exaggeration. The first claw on each hand curves like a scythe, stretching nearly a foot long, tools for fishing that would put any modern grizzly to shame. Historians still argue whether Baryonyx hunted exclusively in rivers or also took prey on land, but here, knee-deep in the current, it looks like a predator in its element. It lifts its arm, water streaming from the hooked claw, and in that instant you see the wriggling silver body of a fish. The Baryonyx tilts its head, snaps its jaws shut around the prey and swallows it whole in a smooth motion. Then, without pause, it wades farther into the water, tail swaying for balance. Quirky tidbit: fossil evidence has shown partially digested fish remains inside a Baryonyx skeleton, along with the bones of a young iguanodon. Apparently, mostly fish was more of a suggestion than a strict diet. Watching it now, you can see how those teeth, unlike the serrated blades of many theropods, are built for holding onto writhing, slippery bodies without tearing them apart too soon. The river's surface flashes as another fish darts just beneath the surface. The Baryonyx freezes, neck tensed, then strikes again, this time both claws plunging in unison. The water explodes in spray, and the predator emerges with a fish in each hand, one quickly snapped up, the other tossed briefly onto the bank before being collected. It moves with a strange mix of precision and power, like a heron built from the blueprints of a small allosaur. Occasionally, it dips its snout into the water and blows bubbles, a behavior some modern fishing birds use to flush prey from hiding. Whether intentional or not, it works. A pair of fish panic into shallower water, right into range of those waiting claws. You take a careful step back, trying to keep the sound of your boots masked by the river's rush. The Baryonyx lifts its head slightly, eyes flicking toward you but makes no move to approach. Instead, it seems to calculate whether you're competition or simply irrelevant. Apparently, you're the latter. It continues along the bank, each step deliberate, claws swinging low like pendulums. The sunlight glances off the ridges along its back, and for a moment you catch the faint shimmer of water droplets still clinging to its feathers. Yes, feathers. Not the fluffy coat of smaller dinosaurs, but sparse, bristle-like filaments along the neck and spine, perhaps for display or insulation. The predator stops suddenly, nostrils flaring. A shadow moves beneath the water, a much larger fish, its scales glinting gold in the current. The Baryonyx crouches, tail stiffening, and then lunges forward with a splash so loud it echoes off the nearby trees. When it rises again, the fish is already trapped between those long, narrow jaws, twisting in a final, futile effort to escape. It hauls its prize onto the bank, pins it with one claw, and begins tearing it into manageable chunks. The sound of bone and cartilage snapping under those teeth is enough to remind you that while this dinosaur may prefer fish, it's still perfectly equipped to dismantle something your size. When the meal is gone, the Baryonyx steps back into the water, washes its claws with a few idle swipes, and moves downstream. You watch the dark shape fade into the glittering current until only ripples mark its passing. Somewhere upriver, another splash rings out, a reminder that in this place, every bend in the water could be someone's hunting ground. You leave the river's chatter behind and follow a narrow game trail into trees that knit their branches low and close, hemming in the sky until it's just a patchwork of leaves and thin light. The air cools a notch, crisped by the shade, and laced with the vanilla resin smell of torn bark. Pine-like needles sigh when the breeze moves, then hush again, and you slow your steps because the forest suddenly feels like a place that rewards quiet. A gnat tickles your cheek and you brush it away. That tiny motion is enough to send something dark flicking between branches above you, too swift for a bird, too precise for a falling leaf. You tilt your head and catch it on the second pass. A shadow no longer than your forearm, wings where you'd expect them, and wings where you wouldn't. It glides, not down but sideways, a silent cross of feathers that banks at the last second and lands on a rough-barked trunk with claws like thumbtacks. The tail fans, the body flattens, and an instant later it has vanished again, slipping from trunk to air as if there were a hinge in its ribs. This is Microraptor, pigeon-sized and smug about it, wearing 4 wings like a magician's extra scarves. Its forearms carry long, asymmetrical flight feathers, and here, the trick, so do its legs, which splay out and catch the air in a second lifting surface. You stay still, because you're a large, obvious punctuation mark in a sentence that wants to keep flowing, and the little hunter is a comma that can change direction mid-pause. It reappears on a low branch, head cocked, eyes beady and glossy. The feathers across its body look black until the light hits just right, and then they whisper a sheen, blue-black, beetle wing black. Quirky tidbit: the microscopic structure of fossilized feathers, little melanosomes preserved like tiny beans, tells us Microraptor likely wore that exact glossy shade, a tuxedo finish that would make any crow jealous and any fashion house invent a pretentious name for it. It inches along the branch, weight forward, tail hard as a ruler. A lizard below makes the fatal mistake of thinking stillness equals safety, and Microraptor decides it is time to demonstrate gravity's customer loyalty program. It drops, legs spreading, arms angling, 4 planes of feather catching a pocket of air so neatly you barely hear the rustle. It doesn't flap, it sails. The landing is a whisper and a pin, sickle claws hooking bark, jaws finding the back of a neck with a soft. Breakfast achieved. Somewhere, a cereal commercial nods respectfully. Historians still argue whether this tiny acrobat truly flew or merely glided, and if it glided, whether it arranged those 4 wings like a biplane or like a single long kite with fancy accessories. You watch another transition, a hop, a flare, a slide along invisible rails. The legs extend backward this time, the tail feathers pivoting, acting like a rudder that is also a hand fan and a show-off. You can see why smart people are still sending each other strongly worded emails about angles. Microraptor pauses on a sapling barely thicker than your thumb and starts to eat, quick bites, efficient. It doesn't waste time. Being snack-sized makes you motivated not to be someone else's snack. You think about the other feathers you've seen on this walk, the shaggy insulation on the Therizinosaurus, the discreet bristles along Baryonyx's spine, the oil-slick flash of Kaham, and this little shadow threads them together, a small, undeniable link in the chain that made wings more than fancy arms. Mainstream historical fact: ever since the first Archaeopteryx feather was described in 1861 from the Zolnhofen limestone, the fossil record has been drip-feeding us the story that dinosaurs and birds are family, and discoveries from the Liaoning beds, where Microraptor comes from, turn the drip into a fire hose. A soft tick overhead makes you glance up at a dangling cone. Microraptor glances up too, head tilting, pupils pinning. You mirror each other's attention like you're in a silent comedy. It flicks its tail. You try not to. The cone bounces, then stills. False alarm unless you are a seed, which you are not. Congratulations on that. You shuffle a half step and feel the forest floor announce you with a crunch. The little predator freezes, throat working as it swallows the last of its lizard. For a heartbeat, you line up, big clumsy biped and tiny elegant one, as if some cosmic editor wants to show the before and after of gravity's design. Then it breaks the pose with a glide that curves so close to your shoulder you hear the faint shiver of feathers. It smells faintly of dust and sap, the scent you get when you open a box of old paperbacks next to a Christmas tree. It perches again higher, and this time a second Microraptor ghosts into view half its size. The larger one shifts sideways to share the branch, beak opening in a hiss whisper that ends on a chirp. Are they a pair, parent and juvenile? Paleontologists lean in and argue posture. You just watch them negotiate seat real estate like two commuters with one armrest. The small one tries a glide of its own, clumsy in the turn, legs splayed too wide. It hits the next branch with a thud, beak first, shakes it off with the indignant vigor of a cat pretending it meant to do that, and tries again. You could swear the bigger one side-eyes it like a weary teacher. A beam of light slips through and paints the tail fans in silver. The bigger Microraptor lifts its tail, flicks, and the banding appears, alternating shades like careful brushstrokes. You file it next to the Parasaurolophus crest and the Anzu's red headblade in your mental gallery of fashion choices that double as science arguments. If you could bottle this scene, you'd label it. Form follows function, then post selfies. Joke 3 lands quietly as you realize you're counting them like a responsible host. The forest beyond murmurs. Something larger shifts, far away, nothing to do with you, and the pair of Microraptors angle toward the darker understory where the trunks rise like closely spaced pillars. They prefer that middle world, not quite ground, not quite sky, where distance is measured in leaps and the wind is a tool you fold and unfold on the go. A moth blunders against bark. The juvenile pounces and misses, then sulks, then catches a different one as if that was the plan from the start. You make a sympathetic face, you hope reads universally across 120 million years. You think about how this animal blurs categories we like to keep sharp. Bird, dinosaur, flies, it doesn't care. It has 4 wings and a to-do list. Eat, not be eaten, show off a little, teach a smaller version of itself to aim better. The simple miracle is that its bones, so slight you could mistake a femur for a wishbone, fossilized well enough to let us argue about its posture in real time. Somewhere in a museum drawer, a slab of slate preserves a map of these feathers so finely you can see the veins. In a lecture hall, someone is sketching airfoils and calling it homework. Out here, you just watch the homework solve itself. The pair climbs outward along a limb until the last few leaves tremble at the edge. There's a moment's communication, a throat sound, a tail flick, and then they vanish in tandem, slipping down into a cool green chute of air. You track them until branches and light swallow them whole. What's left behind is the echo of a glide, a softness on your eardrums, a suggestion that gravity can be negotiated if you bring enough feathers to the meeting. A few needles fall, spiral, land on your sleeve. You brush them away, and the gesture feels almost ceremonial, like closing a book whose pages are still warm. Ahead, the trail slants toward thicker trunks and deeper shade. Somewhere out there is another shape in the catalog of strange. Maybe the twin crests you glimpsed through the shrubs earlier, maybe a memory with teeth. You shift your weight, mindful of twigs, and move on, carrying the hush of 4 wings folded back into the forest's pocket. The canopy thickens again, shadows stretching cool and deep between the trunks. The ground here is wetter, springy underfoot, smelling of moss and the faint tang of rotting vegetation. Somewhere ahead, you hear a slow, deliberate slosh, followed by the gentle creak of plants being bent aside. It's not the hurried rustle of a predator on the hunt. It's the sound of something big, slow, and confident in its place. Through a veil of tall horsetails, you see it emerge. A hulking figure wadding knee-deep through the shallows, arms outstretched like the world's most overgrown scarecrow. Those arms are the first thing that grab your attention, absurdly long for its body, each tipped with claws that curve like black sickles. This is Dinosaurus, and if you didn't know better, you might think it had been cobbled together from leftover dinosaur parts in a particularly whimsical mood. Its head is narrow and duck-billed. Its humpback spine rises into a gentle arch, and the shaggy coat of coarse feathers drapes unevenly down its flanks. The colors are muted, browns and grays streaked with darker bars, but the overall effect is still strange, as if someone stretched an ostrich over a camel frame and gave it bare arms for good measure. Historians still argue about the function of those ridiculous forelimbs. Were they for digging, pulling vegetation, fishing, or simply for looking terrifying? It lowers its beak into the water and sweeps its head side to side, disturbing small fish and aquatic plants. The motion is slow, almost lazy but efficient. A plant stem disappears between its jaws, chewed and swallowed in the same motion. Quirky tidbit: fossilized gut contents suggest Dinosaurus had an omnivorous diet: plants, fish, and possibly small invertebrates, making it one of the more flexible feeders in its ecosystem. You take a careful step forward, the damp soil giving under your weight. The sound makes the Dinosaurus pause, its head rising slightly, nostrils flaring. For a moment, you're under the scrutiny of eyes small for such a massive head, set deep beneath a bony brow. Then it snorts softly and goes back to foraging, either deciding you're harmless or not worth the trouble. Closer now, you can see the hump on its back more clearly, a set of tall neural spines that give its silhouette that distinctive rise. Some researchers suggest these supported a fatty hump for energy storage. Others think they might have helped with thermoregulation. Right now, they just make it look like it's wearing an ill-fitting backpack. A slow ripple moves across the water as the Dinosaurus shifts position. One massive arm swings out, elbow high, claws gleaming wet in the filtered light. The sheer span of it is unsettling, long enough to reach across you entirely without the animal needing to step closer. You imagine those claws raking through dense plants, hooking roots, or even swiping at a persistent predator. A pair of small, bird-like dinosaurs scurry along the bank, quick to avoid the giant's plodding steps. The Dinosaurus pays them no mind, instead finding a patch of reeds and pulling them toward its beak in a slow, steady tug. The sound of stems tearing and water dripping is strangely hypnotic, like the prehistoric version of someone shelling peas on a porch. You watch it move farther along the shore, each step sending ripples out in concentric rings. Occasionally, it dips its entire beak under, blowing bubbles before lifting its head again with a few strands of green trailing from its mouth. It seems unhurried, content to patrol this edge of the water until it's had its fill. Then, without warning, the wind shifts, carrying a new scent, musky, sharp, undercut with the faint copper tang of blood. The Dinosaurus freezes mid-chew, water dripping from its beak. Its head turns toward the denser forest beyond the marsh, body angling slightly away from the scent source. After a moment's hesitation, it wades toward the opposite bank, each stride faster than the last. You stay low, scanning the tree line, but whatever's out there stays hidden. The giant makes the far shore, shakes water from its legs, and disappears into the brush with surprising quiet for something its size. The ripples fade, and the only sound left is the faint splash of something much smaller surfacing where it had been feeding moments ago. You wait until the air feels calm again, though the image of those outstretched claws still lingers. It's hard to shake the thought that in a world of teeth and speed, sometimes the strangest thing you can be is simply too big, too slow, and too well-armed to care. The marshy ground firms beneath your boots as you follow the bank toward drier terrain. The trees thin, replaced by low ferns and scattered boulders streaked with ancient lichen. A breeze snakes through the clearing, carrying the smell of sun-warmed stone and crushed greenery. Ahead, two flashes of movement dart between the rocks, and then a shape steps fully into view, a predator, but unlike any you've seen so far. Its body is lean, its tail long and straight, but your attention is drawn to its head. Rising from the top of the skull are two slender crests, each sweeping back in a gentle curve like the horns of a stylized dragon in some old carving. This is Dilophosaurus, one of the earliest large theropods, and in the warm light it seems to glow as if the air itself is leaning in for a better look. It pauses mid-stride, head cocked, eyes scanning the ground ahead. Historians still argue over the purpose of those twin crests. Some say they were for display, others for species recognition, and a few suggest they might have helped radiate heat. Whatever the truth, the animal carries them with the easy assurance of something that knows it looks good. It steps closer to a cluster of ferns, placing each foot so precisely you almost expect it to leave a signature. Then it lunges, jaws snapping shut around something hidden in the foliage. A muffled squeal confirms the capture, and the Dilophosaurus tilts its head back to swallow. Quirky tidbit: fossil evidence suggests its bite wasn't as strong as later theropods, meaning it may have relied on a combination of speed, precision, and possibly cooperative hunting. You edge around a boulder for a better view. The sunlight catches the crests just right, turning them from dusty brown to a rich crimson, the color deepening toward the tips. For a moment, you wonder if they flush brighter during displays, like a bird's plumage catching the sun at just the right angle. The Dilophosaurus freezes, nostrils flaring. Its gaze sweeps past you toward the far end of the clearing where the ferns are swaying without any wind. Another one steps into view, slightly smaller but with the same twin crests. The first emits a low, throaty call, part purr, part growl, and the newcomer responds in kind. They begin a slow, circling dance, bodies weaving in mirrored arcs. You realize they're not challenging each other, they're hunting together. The smaller one drifts toward a patch of shadow, while the larger moves to cut off a possible escape route. Whatever's in the center of their circle is about to have a very bad day. A sudden burst of motion. A small, fleet-footed reptile bolts from the ferns. The larger Dilophosaurus lunges, forcing it toward the second, which intercepts with a quick sidestep and a snap of jaws. The prey is dispatched in moments, and the two predators meet in the middle to divide the spoils. You watch them feed in silence, the sound of tearing flesh faint beneath the rustle of nearby leaves. When they're finished, the larger lifts its head, scanning the clearing. Its gaze brushes over you again, lingering just long enough to make your pulse spike. Then it turns away, stepping toward the shadows where the other has already melted into the undergrowth. The breeze picks up, brushing the tops of the ferns and carrying the faint musk of the departing predators. You stay still until even the sound of their movement has faded. The clearing feels different now, emptier, but also strangely charged, as if the hunt left behind a residue you can still sense in the air. The clearing narrows into a dry, stony pass where the air feels hotter, sharper. The breeze dies here, trapped between low sandstone ridges that radiate the day's heat back at you. Dust lifts in small swirls around your boots, and the smell of warm rock and baked earth is almost overwhelming. Somewhere ahead, a low, resonant growl ripples through the silence, deep enough to make the pebbles under your feet tremble. It steps into view like a mirage solidifying, the shape so big your brain takes a moment to file it as real. Its head alone is longer than you are tall, the jaws studded with serrated teeth that glint in the harsh sunlight. This is Carcharodontosaurus, the shark-toothed lizard, a predator that could rival Tyrannosaurus in size and surpass it in sheer blade count. Its skin is a tapestry of ochre and dusty red, patterned with irregular blotches that help break up its outline against the rocky terrain. The eyes are small, predatory slits beneath a heavy brow, and every step sends a slow, deliberate quake through the ground. Historians still argue whether it hunted primarily in open floodplains or along forest edges, but here, in this baking pass, it moves like it owns every shadow. The jaws open slightly, revealing teeth up to 8 inches long, curved and serrated like steak knives designed by a sadist. Quirky tidbit: those teeth shed and regrew throughout its life, meaning it could lose hundreds over the years without ever going unarmed. You watch as it flicks its head toward a cluster of boulders, nostrils flaring, tasting the air. Then it moves, fast for its size, covering the distance to the rocks in just a few strides. A startled hadrosaur bursts from cover, hooves clattering against stone as it tries to sprint past. The Carcharodontosaurus swings its head in a brutal arc, teeth closing on empty air by inches. The prey vanishes down the pass, and the predator slows, not winded but clearly calculating its next move. It steps into a patch of sun, and you can see the fine details now. The faint scarring along its flank, the deep grooves in its teeth where bone has worn them down. The muscles in its neck shift with each breath, thick cords built to drive those jaws through flesh and bone. You have the distinct impression that even a glancing bite would be enough to end you. The predator pauses to scan the pass, head swaying slightly, as though weighing the chances of chasing its missed meal versus finding easier prey. For a moment, its gaze passes over you. There's no flicker of surprise or recognition, just the flat appraisal of something deciding whether you're worth the effort. Apparently, you're not. Yet. It turns toward the far end of the pass, each step measured and silent despite its size. When it reaches the ridge's edge, it stops, head lifting to catch the breeze. Somewhere far away, a low trumpeting call echoes, prey, maybe, or competition. Without hesitation, it sets off in that direction, tail swinging with each stride like the counterweight of a colossal pendulum. You stand in the settling dust, the silence heavy in its wake. Even gone, the Therizinosaurus leaves an impression, less like you've seen an animal, and more like you've glimpsed a moving piece of the landscape, one that could decide at any moment whether you belong in it. The stony pass opens into a quieter stretch of land, where the river loops back in from the east. The water here is slow and glassy, reflecting a ribbon of pale sky between the trees. You crouch near the bank, inhaling the cooler air and the faint scent of wet clay, when a ripple disturbs the surface. At first you expect another fish-hunting giant like Baryonyx, but what surfaces is stranger. A small head rises, long and narrow like a goose, but ringed with short, bristly feathers. The eyes are large and bright, scanning in quick jerks before the creature dips under again. Seconds later, it bursts back up, this time with its body almost fully in view, sleek, feathered, and riding the water with the easy confidence of something born to both swim and walk. This is Halscaraptor, a dinosaur that looks like it was designed by a committee that couldn't agree between raptor and penguin, so they compromised. Barely 3 feet long, it has a body built for agility, with forelimbs modified into paddle-like structures for underwater propulsion. Historians still argue whether it hunted primarily in water or was just a very capable swimmer, but here, it's clearly at home in both worlds. It paddles toward the shallows, long tail trailing behind like a rudder. Quirky tidbit: the shape of its snout and the placement of its nostrils suggest it could breathe with just the tip of its head exposed, perfect for stalking prey beneath the surface. You watch as it tilts its head sideways, peering into the water, then lunges with a quick snap of jaws. When it rises again, a small fish wriggles briefly before disappearing down its throat. It moves with a kind of restless energy, alternating between short dives and quick bursts along the surface. Occasionally, it pulls itself onto the muddy bank, where its clawed feet grip the soft ground with ease. Once on land, it's just as nimble, darting between rocks in search of insects or amphibians. From your position, you can see the faint stripping along its back, dark and light bands that break up its outline when it's in the water. The feathers are slick now, flattened by the wet, but you imagine them fluffing up when it's dry, giving it a more raptor-like appearance. Another ripple draws your eye, this time from farther out in the river. The Halscaraptor freezes, head low, then slips back into the water without a sound. You scan the surface, but whatever it's reacting to remains hidden. After a long moment, the little predator reappears farther upstream, clearly in no hurry to return to the spot it just left. It spends the next several minutes working along the far bank, alternating between dives and quick snatches at the shallows. At one point, it even pauses to stretch its neck and shake water from its feathers, sending droplets glittering in the light. There's something strangely endearing about its efficiency. Predator, yes, but also a survivor that thrives in the margins where water meets land. Eventually, it hauls itself out onto a low rock in the middle of the current. There it stands, head high, tail out for balance, looking more like a tiny sentry than a hunter. The water murmurs past on either side, carrying away the faint ripples of its work. You watch it a moment longer before moving on, the sound of its splashes fading into the river's slow song. Somewhere ahead, the water curves out of sight, and the forest shadows grow deep again. The river bends away, and the ground rises into a sunlit plateau scattered with hardy shrubs and patches of coarse grass. The air is drier here, scented faintly with wildflowers and dust, and the horizon feels wider than it is all day. You walk until the wind picks up, carrying a low, rhythmic clack-clack, not stone on stone, but something alive. A shadow moves between the brush, and then you see it, a massive, barrel-bodied herbivore stepping into the open. Its face is dominated by a long frill that sweeps back from the skull like a crown, ringed with thick spikes radiating outward. Above the broad, beak-like mouth, a single, forward-curving horn juts from the nose, catching the sunlight in a pale flash. This is Therizinosaurus, one of the more flamboyant members of the ceratopsian family, and it looks every bit as imposing as the fossil reconstructions promise. It lowers its head to crop a patch of tough grass, the beak slicing through stems with the precision of a pair of garden shears. Historians still argue whether the extravagant frill and spikes were primarily for defense, display, or species recognition. But standing here, it's easy to imagine them doing all three at once. Quirky tidbit: the spikes on the frill could exceed 2 feet in length, turning the dinosaur's profile into something between a shield and a chandelier. A second Styracosaurus emerges from behind a shrub, slightly smaller but with an equally ornate frill. This one's frill is patterned with faint, irregular blotches that might serve as camouflage, or as a way to signal individuality in a herd. The two stand close, their tails flicking occasionally to shoo away insects. The larger one raises its head suddenly, ear openings angled toward the south. From somewhere far off comes a deep, rolling call, low enough that you feel it more than hear it. The smaller responds with a short, sharp grunt, then both turn toward the sound. They don't rush, but they begin to move in that direction, their heavy bodies swaying in a steady rhythm. You keep your distance, watching as they navigate the scrub. Occasionally, one will pause to test a plant with its beak, biting off only the most tender parts before moving on. There's a patience to their foraging, less a race to eat than a slow, methodical sampling of what the plateau offers. The wind shifts, carrying their scent, a mix of warm earth and crushed vegetation, with a faint musk that speaks of sheer mass. When the larger Styracosaurus pauses to look back, you get a full view of its face, eyes calm but alert, frill and horn aligned so perfectly it looks like a crest on a battle standard. They continue toward the south until the land dips away, their frills just visible above the brush before they disappear entirely. The rhythmic clack you first heard fades with them, leaving the plateau quiet except for the wind. You stand there a moment longer, picturing what a herd of these animals would look like in full view, dozens of frilled crowns moving together, their spikes catching the light like a procession of living, breathing banners. In this place, pageantry and survival seem to walk the same trail. The plateau begins to slope downward into a patchwork of sandy flats and low, wind-bent trees. The air warms again, carrying the faint, sweet scent of blooming scythes. You step around a fallen trunk, its surface worn smooth by sun and insects, and catch sight of movement in the shade ahead. A small, stocky dinosaur with a beak like a parrot and arms tucked close to its sides. It freezes when it notices you, head tilted, bright eyes catching the light. Then, with deliberate precision, it leans toward a clutch of pale, oval shapes nestled between roots. The beak works quickly, clipping at the shell until a piece breaks away. This is Oviraptor, a creature that's been misunderstood since the day its fossil was found crouched over a nest. Once thought to be a thief, now believed by many to have been a patient parent. It pauses mid-bite, glances at you, and then, either confident you're not a threat or willing to risk it, returns to its meal. Historians still argue whether Oviraptor actually fed on eggs regularly or whether its beak was better suited to tough plants and shellfish. Quirky tidbit: the beak's sharp edge could slice through mollusk shells just as easily as it could crack an egg, making it something like the Swiss Army knife of dinosaur mouths. The Oviraptor hops sideways, revealing a crest atop its head, a short, rounded ridge that catches the sunlight in warm tones. The feathers along its forearms and tail are well groomed, fanning slightly as it shifts position. It makes a low, warbling sound, and from behind a fallen log, another oviraptor appears, this one slightly smaller but carrying a similar beak and crest. The two stand close together, their movements oddly synchronized. The smaller one begins scraping at the sandy soil with its claws, turning up roots and small insects, while the larger keeps watch. Occasionally, they exchange soft chirps, the kind of gentle communication that feels more domestic than dangerous. A sudden shadow passes overhead and both oviraptors freeze, tilting their heads skyward. A pterosaur glides past, wings catching the sun before it drifts out of sight. The pair relaxes, the larger resuming its careful excavation of the nest site. From your vantage point, you can see that some of the eggs are unbroken, their smooth surfaces dappled with soil and leaf litter. It's possible these aren't stolen at all. These might be theirs. Fossils have been found with oviraptors brooding their own eggs, arms spread protectively over the clutch. That long-standing image of them as thieves may simply have been a misunderstanding baked into paleontology's early days. After a few more minutes of quiet work, the larger one takes a step back, tail fanning slightly. The smaller hops into the shallow depression they've been clearing, settles down over the unbroken eggs, and folds its arms just so. The larger circles once, scanning the perimeter before settling nearby, beak tucked under its feathers. The scene is still and oddly peaceful. The only sounds are the faint rustle of leaves and the low hum of insects. You watch until the wind shifts and the pair becomes just another part of the dappled shade. Then you turn away, careful not to disturb the sand underfoot, leaving them to whatever story they were already writing long before you arrived. The path tightens into a corridor of wiry shrubs and sun-baked stones, the kind that radiate heat like friendly toasters. Gnats orbit your head in lazy ellipses, and somewhere behind you the river murmurs its ongoing subplot. Your mid-step, attention on a thorn snagging your sleeve, when something the size of a loaf of bread rockets out of the brush, ricochets between your boots, and vanishes under a rock like a thought you were just about to remember. You freeze, one boot hovering, because you've just been used as a checkpoint in the world's smallest obstacle course. It pops back out, slender, quick, a balancing act on two narrow legs. The tail is a taut wire, the head a precise arrow, the whole body the line a pencil makes when you draw speed. This is Compsognathus, the tiniest terror you'll meet today, and it moves with the confidence of a creature that knows almost anything bigger than it will miss with the first swipe. You crouch slowly. It cocks its head so far to one side that for a second you think it's about to tip over. Then it dashes forward 3 steps, stops, and pretends to be a twig. Oscar for best method acting goes to stick. It's lean, built like a runner. The forelimbs are short but not useless, the fingers slender, each tipped with a sharp little claw. Historians still argue whether Compsognathus had 2 or 3 functional fingers. Preservation hasn't done us any favors, so for now you mentally annotate them as enough to open a snack. The jaws are lined with needle teeth, the kind that leave polite punctures rather than grand gestures, perfect for small vertebrates and overconfident insects. It inches toward a patch of dappled light and freezes again, eyes pinning on a skidder in the litter. You follow the gaze and barely spot a tiny lizard doing a bad impersonation of a leaf. There's a blur, a pounce, and the lizard becomes a problem for future digestion. Quirky tidbit: one famous Compsognathus fossil from the Solnhofen limestone preserves stomach contents, tiny lizard bones curled like punctuation marks in the belly. You're watching a reenactment live, with fewer museum guards. It backs into shade, jaws working, tail vibrating in little calibration ticks. The movement is bird-like, more finch than fearsome. And that thought reminds you that these rocks once held another celebrity, Archaeopteryx. Mainstream historical fact: the 19th century Solnhofen quarries produced both Archaeopteryx and Compsognathus, 2 fossils that helped cement the dinosaur-bird connection long before feathered theropods became runway regulars. You think of Microraptor's tuxedo sheen and feel like you've stepped backstage at evolution's fashion show, watching the early fittings. The little hunter swallows, does an immediate quality assurance check of the ground, and then sidles into a slice of sun, where its skin, scaled and fine, shows off a subtle pebbling. Pale light paints faint bands along the tail, the kind of pattern that breaks up a silhouette under thorny shade. Historians still argue whether Compsognathus wore any fuzz, filamentous feathers like its later kin. None have been found on this one, but fossils from related species in China strut proto-feathers like it's a casual Friday, so the debate hums on like the gnats. A breeze slides down the corridor, bringing the soft aftertaste of river water and the dusty hint of crushed fern. Compsognathus raises onto the tips of its toes. Yes, more toes than you were prepared for listening with its whole skeleton. Its head flicks toward your knee and freezes. You consider the value of becoming a statue. On the list of survival strategies, be geologically interesting is underrated. It worked for the rocks after all. The twig routine ends. It scuttles forward, investigates your boot with scientific rigor, and decides you're either inedible or too much paperwork. It darts away, then back, then away again, trajectories so tight they feel like they're being drawn by a compass. You get one clean look at the hands, delicate, flexing, and it stops long enough to scratch its neck with the back claw, and the universal gesture of itch occurs in all epochs. Another rustle, and suddenly there are two. The newcomer is even smaller, a half-size echo, and the first immediately goes into mine mode, tail stiff, head low, a tiny dragon defending an invisible border. They trade chirps, high, glassy little notes that sound like someone tapping a spoon against a jar. Then, sensing the productivity cost of squabbling, they both sprint in opposite crescents and converge on the same moth, arriving so precisely together that the moth elects to retire from existence rather than file a complaint. Joke 1. Collaboration really speeds up meetings. They tug once, twice. The moth divides, everybody wins. The little one glances at you, decides you're the least threatening mountain ever, and resumes foraging, tracing a tight figure eight around your ankles that you pretend is a trust exercise you initiated on purpose. Your breath slows to match their staccato pauses. You're in their tempo now. Run, freeze, run. Like the Parasaurolophus's low horn call translated into Morse code. You catch yourself cataloging. Baryonyx's fishhook claws, Ankylosaurus's bowling ball tail, Spinosaurus's sail like a billboard, and here's Compsognathus. No weapons to sell at the gift shop, just speed, attention, and the audacity to invade your personal space. In a world of medieval hardware, sometimes the weirdest flex is being small enough to never set off the alarm. Joke 2. If you can't be the apex predator, be the apex surprise. The larger one pounces on a beetle with such glee that it slips, skids across a flat stone, and pops up in a seamless, meant to do that flourish. You appreciate the theater. You've done that same move in front of automatic doors. It shakes its hands, tiny, quick shivers, then resumes business with the solemnity of a consultant clocking billable minutes. From farther down the scrub corridor comes a whisper of movement too heavy for these two. Both freeze, heads stacked like punctuation marks, comma and comma. They lower, tails straightening, the air suddenly the kind you sip rather than breathe. The sound fades, probably a plant eater bumping a shrub, and the duo relaxes in a synchronized exhale. You swear the bigger one looks up at you like, "See, we had that," which is a bold statement for 10 ounces of dinosaur. Joke 3. Confidence scales are apparently non-linear. You think about how much of paleontology has depended on lucky moments like that preserved lizard, a last meal flash frozen in limestone, a footfall through soft mud, a feather's shadow in a fine-grained sheet. And you think about how much is still hidden, how a creature like this, quick as a reflex, could live whole lives between the footsteps of giants and leave only hints. It makes the quiet feel earned. The way the hush after a Parasaurolophus call settles into your chest like a gong shiver that never fully fades. The small one tests your boot again, pecks at a speck of dried mud, decides you are not edible but perhaps taste vaguely of geology, and zips away. The larger pivots, Trace runs a spiral that draws it to the rock it hid under the first time you saw it. In a single pleat of motion, it's gone, folded into shadow so cleanly you can't reconstruct the path. The juvenile lingers 2 beats longer, flicks its tail like a tiny metronome, then threads the same needle of stone and shade. You wait, knowing that sometimes stillness coaxes the shy back into view. The shrubs rattle a little. A leaf does a slow, guilty shimmy and then plays dead. Nothing returns. The corridor breathes. You let your lifted boots settle at last. The print you leave is shallow, the kind of mark wind will forget. You move on with the lightness that comes from not being eaten and the odd uplift of having served as a temporary landmark in a stranger's life. Somewhere ahead, the brush parts toward a stand of taller trees where the shadows lace tighter. You glance back once at the rock, half-hopping for a final darting farewell. It stays rock-like, a talent it's perfected over millions of years. You smile anyway, because you know the tiny terror is still in there, coiled like a spring, waiting for the next boot, the next beetle, the next moment to be fast in a world that often rewards slow and heavy. The scrub corridor spills you into a grove of low, twisted conifers whose trunks bend like they've been shaped by centuries of wind. The light here is fractured into green-gold shards, and the air carries a resinous sharpness mixed with the faint, dry scent of moss. Your boots sink slightly into the cushion of needles underfoot. It's quiet, so quiet that the sudden, thin scritch of claws on bark makes you freeze mid-step. The sound comes again, higher this time, and your eyes trace the twisting trunk of a nearby tree until you see it. A small dinosaur clinging halfway up the bark, body flattened against the surface. Its head is narrow, its eyes large and round, and from its sides stretch not just feathers but strange, membranous sheets of skin. They're taut and dark, almost leathery, running from elongated wrist bones down toward the body, wings, but not like any birds. This is Yi-Chi, the strange wing, a tiny experiment in flight from the Jurassic. It clings for a long moment, then shifts slightly, and the sunlight catches the wing membranes, thin enough to glow at the edges, revealing a faint network of supporting veins. Historians still argue over exactly how these creatures use such odd structures. Were they gliders, awkward flappers, or somewhere in between? Quirky tidbit. The name Yi-Chi literally means strange wing in Mandarin, and it's hard to imagine a more accurate label. The little dinosaur turns its head sharply, listening. Its claws dig into the bark, and then, with a small push, it launches itself sideways. The wings snap into shape instantly, the membrane stretching like an opening umbrella. It doesn't flap. Instead, it glides in a shallow arc toward another tree, tail and legs trailing for balance. The landing is neat, claws biting into bark without a sound. You take a slow step closer, careful not to crunch the needle litter. The Yi-Chi shifts position again, scrambling higher in short bursts, the membranes folding tightly along its sides between moves. From this angle, you can see that the feathers are limited mostly to its head, neck, and tail, giving it a half-feathered, half-bat-like appearance. It's an odd combination, like 2 different blueprints laid over each other and somehow made to work. Another glide, this one longer, dipping lower before angling up to a tree farther off. It lands near a thick branch where something small and furry is clinging to the bark. With a quick snap of its head, the Yi-Chi seizes its prey, probably an insect or tiny mammal, and begins to feed. It works quickly, tearing small bites and swallowing them without pause. A faint chitter drifts down from above, and you spot a second Yi-Chi, this one smaller, clinging upside down to a nearby branch. It watches the first intently, shifting its weight in small, restless motions. After a moment, it launches itself into the air, wings opening to catch a narrow stream of light between the trees. The glide is shorter, less controlled. It overshoots the branch it was aiming for and has to scramble awkwardly back up the trunk. The larger one pauses its meal to make a brief, high-pitched call. The smaller answers and tries another glide, this one better. You can almost imagine it learning the routes between these trees, testing the distances and memorizing the safe landings. You lean against a trunk, watching them. In the stillness, you can hear the faint creak of the wing membranes when they stretch, a sound like old parchment being gently pulled taut. Every so often, the light hits them just right, and the veins stand out in delicate, branching lines. Reminders that these wings aren't feathers, but something entirely different, a design that never quite caught on. When the larger Yi-Chi finishes eating, it glides once more, vanishing into a denser part of the grove. The smaller follows, its arc less graceful but determined. Within seconds, both are gone, their dark membranes blending into the shadowed canopy. The forest settles again, the air still holding that resin and moss scent, as if nothing unusual had passed through at all. You push away from the tree, feeling the softness of the needle bed under your boots, and glance toward the deeper shadows ahead. Somewhere out there, the last light of the day is waiting, and maybe one final strange silhouette to add to your list. The conifer grove thins, and the ground slopes gently toward an open floodplain washed in gold by the lowering sun. The air feels warmer here, carrying the faint mineral tang of silt and the distant chorus of insects tuning up for the night. Your boots leave shallow impressions in the soft earth, each step matched by the slow pulse of the river beyond. A shadow moves ahead, tall, upright, with a proud, deliberate gait. As it steps into the light, the shape resolves into a long-bodied hadrosaur with a crest sweeping backward from the top of its skull, shaped like the helmet of an ancient warrior. This is Therizinosaurus, the helmet lizard, and its silhouette in the setting sun looks almost ceremonial. It moves with calm assurance, tail swinging in measured arcs for balance. The skin is patterned in muted bands of ochre and gray, catching the sunlight in subtle gradients. The crest itself is hollow, connected to the nasal passages, and when the animal exhales, the sound it makes is a soft, resonant woo-woo that ripples out across the plain. Historians still argue whether these calls were meant for communication, mating displays, or warning signals. But here, it feels like a farewell to the day. A second call answers from somewhere near the river, lower and more drawn out. The Therizinosaurus pauses, head tilted slightly toward the sound, then continues walking, each step slow and deliberate. Quirky tidbit: some scientists believe individuals could produce a range of tones by altering airflow through their crests, making them the prehistoric equivalent of a wind instrument section. You keep pace at a respectful distance, the floodplain unfolding around you in shades of amber and shadow. The dinosaur stops to graze on a patch of low plants, its beak cropping the leaves with rhythmic precision. Occasionally, it raises its head to scan the horizon, the light catching along the smooth curve of the crest. As the sun dips lower, the sky deepens to a warm, hazy orange. A faint breeze sweeps across the plain, carrying the scent of water and the cool promise of evening. The Therizinosaurus moves toward the river, its long strides unhurried. Another call rolls out from the distance, and this time the animal responds with a series of shorter notes, almost conversational. You follow until the ground turns softer underfoot, the grass giving way to siltier soil near the water's edge. The river reflects the sky's fatting light, turning each ripple into molten gold. The Therizinosaurus wades into the shallows, crest held high, and stands for a moment, as if savoring the coolness. Then it lowers its head and takes a slow drink, the surface breaking in concentric rings that spread toward the opposite bank. The last edge of the sun touches the horizon, and the world around you shifts into dusk. In this light, the Therizinosaurus is no longer just a dinosaur. It's a living emblem of its time, a shape perfectly at home in a world that will one day vanish. When it turns to walk downstream, the crest cuts a clean silhouette against the afterglow, and the sound of its call lingers in the air long after it's gone. You stand on the riverbank until even the ripples fade, the plain settling into a quiet that feels timeless. The journey through these encounters plays back in your mind, claws and sails, frills and feathers, colors you didn't know the past could hold. Somewhere out there in the deepening dark, the rest of the prehistoric night is beginning. But for now, the day has given you its final strange marvel, and it walks away into the gold, carrying the music of its crest into the quiet.